Halacha says, דבר מאכל שהתבשל במשקה והולך מחמת המשקה שעליו, צריך ליטול ידיו קודם אכילתו. The person cooked the food, and now because of that, the food is obviously wet due to the liquid that was in the cooking process. In that case, a person is obligated to wash his hands before eating such a food. So if a person wants to have, let's say, he made a soup, and there's vegetables inside, and now obviously all the vegetables are all wet. In such a case, if a person is eating those vegetables without, of course, obviously a spoon or a fork, in such a case, a person is obligated to wash it. But if he's eating it with a fork or a spoon, and in that case he's not touching the soup, in such a case he would not have to wash his hands. Another interesting case where most people are not so careful, that is if a person pickled vegetables. If a person has, let's say, pickles, olives, things like that, is a person obligated to wash? Again, it comes to the same halacha. Kevan that again they are wet. If they're wet and they're not dried off, in such a case, a person is obligated to wash his hands before eating them. Again, this is assuming that a person is eating shi'ur of a kezai, that a person is not eating one olive or a small pickle or whatever it is. In such a case, obviously, you don't have to wash because you're not eating a shi'ur. But if a person is eating a bunch of olives, a bunch of pickles, enough to be considered the shi'ur of a kezai, and he's not eating it with a fork or a spoon, in such a case, since he's touching it with a hand, he would be obligated to wash his hands prior to having, again, the pickles or the olives. Another case that a person has to be careful is that if, let's say, they have cookies or cakes, sometimes they have a cookie or a cake, and they want to dip it inside of tea, or they want to dip it inside of milk. In such a case, again, kevan that you're using your hands, even if your hands are not touching the actual liquid, but the fact that you're actually using your hands to dip, in such a case, a person would be obligated to wash his hands prior to having the cookie or the cake, whatever it is that he's dipping inside the tea. Again, this is all with the intention that a person is going to have the amount of a shi'ur kezai. But let's say this guy is having one kak. He's having one kak and he's dipping it inside the tea. In such a case, given that it's not a shi'ur, even though that he's using his hands, he would not have to wash his hands prior to the dipping.
Without beracha, right?
Without beracha, of course.